Oh, Jeffy, how are you? Doing good? You know about the story coming way right now, or you got a little bit of extra time and going down, but then also right back again. And so, you know, it's really yeah. I'm glad you came. No, it's too big.
Good morning, everyone. Can I have everybody to their tables, please? Good morning. Thank you for being here at the West San Antonio Chamber Breakfast this morning. I appreciate everyone braving the weather and being with us. So thank you for starting to eat. That's what the food is there for. I want you to eat everything up to make sure we send you out of here just fresh and ready to go for the day's work. Right now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Juan Solis, board member for the Port of San Antonio, and he is going to do our invocation this morning.
Good morning, and as people trickle in, we will start our day. Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing everybody together today. We understand that every day is a blessed day, and we especially are excited to listen to one of our most blessed public servants that we have here in the city of San Antonio. It is a unique opportunity that we come together as a full community to not only say thank you to you, Lord, but also to thank you to the people that have provided us with the beautiful breakfast this morning. We thank all the workers that have put that together, and we ask that you continue to provide us your guidance throughout the day and tomorrow. Amen.
Thank you, Senor Solis. Can I have everyone stand? I'm going to have Deputy Badillo of the Bexar County Sheriff's Department lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deputy, for that. Everyone have a seat, please. Continue eating. We will resume our program in about 10 minutes, and we'll get started with everything else. Please enjoy. And don't forget to go get seconds.
Kept us up all night.
Pretty busy last night?
No, I mean, I was out last night. I couldn't sleep.
Oh, you're just talking about the noise and stuff? Yeah, I live way out of the west side. We heard it early.
Jared said he worked the MOT.
Still a lot of families, but it's like
I'm actually born and raised in the area. I'm actually running for county commissioner now. One of the main reasons I decided to run was because I left. I came back.
I know you're busy, so I just sit down and I'll walk around and meet what you do.
breakfast was good.
We're live, so
My high school started here. Very loud. Right, exactly. Actually, on
So we both have black hair. Oh my God.
How's it going, sir?
How are things going? Going well. How about yourself? Good, good. You're still partnering with the business solutions you guys are doing, the group?
Which group?
Weren't you doing a group with the other gentleman I always ran into?
Well, we had a company called San Antonio Business Alliance.
Yes.
No, that we stopped doing that for a little while.
You did?
It's on
Okay.
hold for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see in the future.
You guys been kicking there for
We
a while.
need a little bit more kind of just support. I think from the right kind of organizations.
Yeah.
Plus, there was a lot of competition came out with Cafe Commerce, Maestro, Saturday.
Those are all sort of like spin off somewhere, something. I'm sure someone in my department.
So, but we still advocate
Good.
for small businesses. And just don't do it under that brand, you know.
Yeah, I haven't seen him around for a while.
The dad's always meeting.
No, he's doing well actually. Peter's actually running his own insurance agency right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's doing very, very well. He's got over 20 agents, and I just talked to him last week. We don't see each other or talk to each other as much, obviously, but he's doing fantastic. He's very excited.
Good, man. Well, good to see you.
Thank you. We're live right now, so if you want to share it, you know, if you're on Facebook, just say, hey, we're live with the West San Antonio Chamber. We're actually streaming to YouTube right now. So,
Okay, I'll do that.
all right, thank you.
Good, just said at breakfast meetings. To rub our low rank up to eating out enjoy your coach day.
All of them.
Okay, so I was a pro for, well, I wasn't sure it was 24 years. I was a pro for 11 years. I was recently and you got more out. We do, that's all we have. Yeah, we do all that. So, yes. So we do, like, he's in charge of the system, helping with that, and he does, I'll let you say it because it's a
Well, it's our whole unit. We help each other out. We have before Sheriff Salazar, we only had one explorer post. Now we have 8.
Oh yeah.
That's good. I did split hold on, check that. At the Plaza Club, Front Bank. It's 8 o'clock. We started at 4 8.
Oh, really? Yes. Because a lot of things that
He told me he emailed me and said, be here.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't worry about it.
So what I do is I'm looking for the premium side. You know, everything else that's the so, you know, they're the ones that really do expand that population. So that's what CBS is. So anything that you find now, there's groups and stuff that that's what I'm looking for.
I've seen this thing sitting here for years.
But since there's so many CPS that there's so many people that I'm going to get there. I'm going to get it.
Oh, the other thing we do is, like I said, we have a sport program. I do the Citizens Academy. If you want to be a part of that, it's a great way to. In the Citizens Academy, what we do is it's a 13-week course. We meet once a week from 6 to 9 p.m. And you see every aspect of the sheriff's office. For example, if you we start in chronological order. For example, if someone's breaking into your house, and who's the first contact you would make the sheriff's office? 911 dispatcher. So that first class, you're sitting with the dispatcher, watching to see what the dispatcher does. You know, and then the next day would be patrolman. The next class would be patrolman. So you do a ride along. You do felony stops. We show you how we do felony stops, and you get to see that aspect of it. And
What's the goal of having cohort of citizens in learn public? Is it just to inform them how the sheriff's department works?
they have a lot of questions. They're not really sure of what the sheriff's office does still. They you know, I mean, even to this day, we'll have people stop us and say, "You can't give me a ticket. I'm in the city." You know, it's still Barrett County. You know, right. So it's good. Number one, it's a good way for them to see what the sheriff's office does and how we do things. And a lot of times they wonder why a burglary detective didn't get to it so fast, or why they have all these questions. Well, in this class, they have the opportunity to see every step of a criminal offense. We go from patrol to evidence. You know, why didn't you fingerprint my dress? Well, because the graphite seeps into the wood and messes up the wood. So we have them fingerprint, and we have them fingerprint cars. We show them the 3 types of evidence gathering that we do. That way they get a better understanding. We bring burglary detectives in to talk to them, and any questions they've ever had, they can do that. We take them to the Justice Center. We take them to the jail. We have 2 days at the jail where they get a tour of the jail and they see how the inmates live versus the DA versus one officer with no weapon, you know, and that type of stuff. So it's a great way for the public to get a better understanding of what we see through our eyes. And then,
This is my first time going through it because I just keep doing it. So you get a lot of people that they want to know why when they call it in, it goes to this slide, whatever. When they're in the car, in the kid car, and they just see where we are, why is it? I mean, yes, we need it, but unless you know the better details or your license plate,
Well, I want to start. And we're here because of the brilliance of this. This is something new that Sheriff has started. It's kind of like crime prevention, but it's business-wise. And we're trying to get the business owners to become better organized with each other down the street. You know, get a phone bank set up with all the businesses. That way, if you see something or something happens to you, we can do you know, they can do a call out to everybody, kind of like crime prevention or like neighborhood watch. Okay, and if the store meets the requirements, in other words, if we go over there and they have these requirements already in place, the sheriff is going to give them this slow badge certification sticker that they put on their window or the store or the door of the store to signify that they've made an effort to make it more secure and kind of an awareness to the thief or the you know, the burglar or whoever to hey, you know, we're on top of things here, so you may want to go somewhere else. So, this sheriff is very innovative, and he's very he comes from called citizens policing background. Right. So he comes from a community policing background, and so this is something we needed. We've had it for a long time. I've been in this unit, I guess about 18 years, but we never had the push to go get it done. You know, so we're pushing all these programs now, and we're a lot more community policing based. A TPS case that we do. We even have an elder fraud task force that we go out and we educate the elderly about elder abuse and fraud. Because as you know, parents elderly, they can be sued about $5,000, but they don't want to let the kids know because
everybody. So once again, my name is Christy Villanueva. I'm the interim president for the West San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to do a little housekeeping really, really quickly. If you parked in the garage, it is $4 to park there. It is cash only. And the young lady at the hostess desk can give you a ticket for that. Do not leave without that ticket. Because if you do, then you're going to end up paying who knows how much. So that may be $6 or $7, but for us, for this event, it's $4. So don't forget to stop by that stand, the hostess stand, and make sure you pay the ticket and you can get out the door more quickly. That's also a great way to sail out the door. So thank you for joining us today. This is a wonderful event. We are so happy to have Councilman Saldana here and give us all the key information about his district. Another thing that we've started here is I have a small business that I am featuring in the front right next to VIA. So there's a table for VIA, and they've got a lot of great information about the tech that they're doing and how they're sharing with the community and offering opportunities. But the second thing is having that small business here to connect the dots. So that company is Nextend. Can you folks stand up, please? So this is a small minority woman-owned business in tech, okay? And they are working very diligently here in San Antonio to do some wonderful things. So if you can, take a minute to speak to them. Thank you. And wonderful, smart young people. I've had a chance to spend a little time with them, so they're doing some wonderful things. There's flyers on your table. On one side, it's got the events that are coming up, and on the other side, it's got information on Nextend. So you really need to read about them. There's a lot of great companies in San Antonio, as you know. We have the highest rate of entrepreneurs that are growing here in San Antonio, so we have to do our best to support them as we can. I'm a big proponent of working and teaming, joint ventures with these small companies to give them the opportunity to open some doors. On the other side of that flyer, on your Peeps flyer, you're going to see some other information about some upcoming events. We're going to talk about them in just a minute, but first I'm going to bring up Chairman Rudy Rodriguez so he can address our group.
Christine. Well, good morning, everybody. And I've got to say that I think my phone battery's about dead from people calling me, telling me they're either on 281 stuck behind a wreck, or that it's lightning out on the west side of San Antonio. And I kind of scanned with my phone. I said, well, some people made it. So thank you guys for bearing the weather. I think that we're going to get another round of showers later this morning, and so be cautious out there while you're driving and getting around the city. So thank you again for being here. Another one of our council breakfasts. I know that today it's a very special day for me, because certainly Councilman Saldana has been a shining star from the day that he, really before he even went to Stanford, but since he's been back, he has certainly done some tremendous leadership in our city. While I like to call him, used to tease him about being so young on council, today he's really now the elder statesman, if you will, Councilman, at the young age of 31, I'm sorry, Councilman. Yeah. It's a tough room here, right? It's a tough room here, I want to tell you. But, but again, I'm so excited every time that we get together, Councilman, and because it really brings together a lot of energy, and while our focus is primarily the western sector of the city, you cannot help but recognize the tremendous efforts that are represented in this room, whether it be the Vista Ridge pipeline, or whether it be CPS Energy, or the things we're doing in transportation at VIA, all of the excellent work that's going on out at Port San Antonio for city base, and to have leadership of those various agencies here helping us and being part of our effort at the West San Antonio Chamber is certainly a compliment. So thank you guys very much. I also want to say that I was at a meeting the other day that somebody said, and I think this is a very interesting point of where we are today as a city. Jeff just looked at me right there, and I was thinking, what did I do something wrong, Jeff? Anyway, thank you, Jeff. And somebody said, you know, that building is going to be quite odd. That new flagship building that's going up downtown. And you can see it right across the way there. It's going to be one of the most spectacular buildings in downtown San Antonio. But the person said, I wonder if it's really going to fit the downtown culture. Well, a very bright young man who is in the construction business said in that same meeting, he said, it's a sign of changing times. And we in San Antonio have been kind of following a path of progress kind of within our certain scope of vision. I think this building says something brand new about San Antonio, that we are now turning into the tech industry. We are now becoming much more contemporary in our thinking. And so I'm very, very proud of seeing a building like this, which is such a signature component to our downtown. John Warren here from Clark Construction is here with Tom Guido and Mary Ann Guido and others. But John is the project executive for that particular building. John, raise your hand to be recognized. Let me tell you, I've been involved with several construction projects and certainly a lot of the Guido projects, and it makes you feel very small when you get on these projects. But I had the opportunity to stand on top of this building about a week ago and talk about feeling small. You know, there's 200 guys running around and 2 cranes moving equipment, and everything will kill you. But I'm telling you, it's a phenomenal feat to see that kind of architecture and design coming up in our wonderful city. So thank you guys for that overall support. I do want to take a moment to also recognize some of our elected officials, along with, you know, our keynote speakers certainly, but Councilwoman Sandoval is in the audience. Councilwoman, if you would raise your hand to be recognized. I saw Councilman Trevino here. He just stepped out. Okay, Councilman Trevino. Juan Solis from Port San Antonio is here. And I thought I saw Keta Rodriguez, who is candidate for county commissioner. Keta, if you'd stand and be recognized. Anyway, so those are my remarks this morning, and again, thank you very much for being here. As Christy said, we're going to talk about, before the councilman comes up, a couple of upcoming events and a couple of signature things that she is doing alongside with Sheriff Salazar and others that I think we're going to provide our members some tremendous insights into the kind of forward thinking and how to get ahead of programs and issues of today. So again, thank you all very, very much, and thank you for being part of the West San Antonio Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, thank you folks. I will be as brief as I can, but I do have a lot of passion for these programs that I'm going to mention. I'm going to ask Sheriff Salazar to join me up here so he can help us explain what they are. Many of you know I took over the position as interim November 1st, and there was a lot of things. Obviously, my job was to go in and analyze and see what's missing, not only for the big business, but also for the small business owners, and what we need to provide in support of that. So I reached out to Sheriff Salazar to see what else we could do. Safety is such a key role, especially in this day and age, that it's so necessary as business owners to teach our employees what they need to do in case they do run into a situation. As a matter of fact, I've had some interesting situations at the Port of San Antonio. Our office sits at the administrative offices of the port, and I have found myself calling Rosalie saying, oh my goodness, there is a man here that should not be here, but it's partly my fault for working until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. But what is it that we do? We don't emphasize that enough. So we've entered into a partnership. This is an established program that Sheriff already has. So what we're going to do as West Chamber members and friends is we're going to enhance that. We want to invite everyone. It is you as the owner, it is you as the director, upper management, And it is your employees that need to be attending these events, because everything we do transcends into their personal lives. And if they know how to protect themselves, they're going to know how to protect your business every single day when they come to work, no matter what the situation, no matter what the industry. So let me let Sheriff Salazar tell us a little bit more.
Thank you, Christy. Good morning. You know, as Christy mentioned, this is an existing program. It's actually a conglomeration of several existing programs. But make no mistake about it, Christy and her drill instructor style helped us kick it up to the next level. And so she's very much been a driving force behind taking this thing to where it is now and where it's going for sure in the future. You know, at the Sheriff's Office, we're working hard to get more involved and stay more involved. Not just in rural Bexar County. I think what's been forgotten over the years is that if you live in downtown San Antonio or Olmos Park or Alamo Heights, I'm your sheriff too. And so we're making a conscious effort to yes, we still have to cover the donut around San Antonio that is unincorporated Bexar County. However, we've got 2 million Bexar County residents that also depend on us. They also pay our salary. And so we're making an effort to get more involved within the incorporated areas, and the business community is a big part of that for us. If we're not doing everything in our power to not just protect the business community, but to teach the business community how to protect themselves until we get there, then we're not doing our job. And so this, our Gold Badge certification program is something we're working toward, getting out into the businesses. And it's really, as Christy mentioned, it's really not that much new. It's a lot of just basic preventative type things, like keeping your windows clear so that patrol can see in the windows, strips on the height strips on the doors, common things like that. However, we're also going to be talking to folks about how to recognize signs of a human trafficking victim if they come into your store. Like we're going to be, we call it Crime Prevention 2.0 in the Sheriff's Office, and so it's a program that we're looking to. It'll be unveiled even more so in the next couple of weeks and months. But we're really looking forward to it, and we want your feedback as we get this thing fine-tuned. And as we, this is really a living document. This is a living program, and we want you to help us fine-tune it as we go along. And we're showing you all how to become part of it. So I appreciate the opportunity to come out. I certainly appreciate Christy's leadership in helping us get this thing going. It's going to happen, and it's going to be great. So thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, so let's continue with the program. The dates, the proposed dates that we have for these events, there's a workshop. You're going to get to be able to be in front of several detectives. That's on the flyer that's on your table. So there'll be more information on the website as we develop this program and things come to fruition. We'll also have most likely a press conference in the next week and a half. And then one thing that the other chambers are not doing that we're doing, we're actually going to have an active shooter class. I have 2 planned for May. They're 2.5-hour classes. They're very important and very informative. You'll be able to ask a ton of questions. Okay, so we'll put that aside. Please call me if you have any questions about any of these events. So right now, I'd love to bring up this wonderful man who is contributing in an amazing way to the community. Public transit is so phenomenal these days, and it provides us this track to get from one place to another, and we don't even realize it as we're driving in our cars, and that how important and what a lifeline transit is to us. We sometimes neglect that. I had a conversation with Priscilla just recently and told her that in my past life, more than probably 15 years ago, I used to work for public transit, and I take public transit. My 13-year-old son takes public transit. It is a safe, effective means of transportation, and I love it. And I'm so happy about the work that Jeff Arndt is doing in our community, and the West Chamber supports that. So Jeff, will you please join us up here?
Thank you very much. I do want to do a quick commercial spot before I start. If you are coming into the downtown area Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you know there's things that are happening like basketball. music and fan events. VIA will be operating park and ride service from Madla, from Crossroads, and from Blossom Athletic Center, $5 round trip, and we guarantee that the driver is sober, which is a big deal. So I've been asked to introduce the councilman, and I do have a wonderful introduction here that Leroy put together, and everybody knows Leroy's a rock star, but Leroy, I'm not going to use it. Sorry, I'm going to do my own story. So I call this, this is inspired by the Wizard of Oz, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my background with the councilman. So it started at Madla Transit Center, where we're running Park and Ride this weekend. The councilman had given up his car for a month and had ridden VIA for a month. And so I met him at Madla, and we took a bus ride into City Hall that day and discussed what his insights were. And what he said was, you know, your operators are great, your equipment looks good, but man, if you have to make a transfer, it can take forever. You know, some of your routes only run once an hour. That's why people have to get up in the middle of the night to get to their job at the medical center at 7 a.m. You know, what can we do about that? And I said, well, Councilman, money, that's what we can do about it. You know, we get a half-cent sales tax. We're kind of at the half-cent limit now. If we want to increase frequency, we have to have the funds to do it. So he started putting together an idea of how we might do that. Went to, I think it was B session, and the entire idea was subjected to what I call purgatory, idea purgatory, which was a formation of a committee. But the councilman did not let that stop him. So we worked through the committee, and the committee came up with a recommendation and went back to council. And yeah, there were some roadblocks. The lawyer said you can't use those dollars. The city manager said, if you do that, I'm going to have to lay off all kinds of people, all kinds of roadblocks. But the councilman didn't give up. And as a result of that, today, there are people out there today whose route used to run once an hour, and now it's once a half hour. And while half hour is not fantastic, it's so much better than an hour. And there are people out there today whose routes used to run about every 20 minutes, now running almost every 10 minutes, which is tremendous. And this progress is going to continue both in May and January, so we will implement this full program that was accelerated from our original plan that will result in about a dozen high-frequency corridors compared to the one high-frequency corridor we had when we began our work together. What I believe this shows are three key attributes to our councilman. First of all, he is committed to serving all people, and especially people who don't have a voice. You know, those people that are working 2 jobs and riding VIA and taking an hour or so for every trip, they don't have time to come to city council meetings or to VIA board meetings to raise that issue. He raised the issue for them. Second of all, he has great intelligence. I don't think, I mean, we all know 2 bachelors and a master's at Stanford. Yeah, you don't do that if you're not extremely bright, obviously. But his insight from that 1 month on the road with VIA, right on target. And lastly, he has this laser-like focus on getting things done, regardless of obstacles, regardless of excuses. He's going to get results. And so I say that we have a councilman here who has the brains, the heart, and the courage to be the wizard of city council. Ray Saldana.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. Well, I'm excited to be here with you all. I'm thinking first that first things first, which is that I want to make sure to thank Christy Villanueva, who's the head of the West Chamber. And in my old age, I've seen a lot of different folks and a lot of different institutions. In fact, I was going to joke with Sheriff Salazar. I remember when not only Sheriff Salazar was public information officer with SAPD, you'd see him on KSAT or KVB at 9 o'clock being the voice or the spokesperson for SAPD. I also remember when he had hair. So this is how long I go back on the. This is how long I go back with the council here. Let me do my best to try to make sure that I'm giving you guys a little bit of a rundown. So this will be 7 years in May that I've been on the San Antonio City Council. And so if it seems like I'm freewheeling and freestyling up here, it's on purpose, because you can't do anything to get rid of me, and I'm not running for re-election. So what's great about this is that I get to sort of take this opportunity to take a quick look back and just walk through some of the things that I think are important for you all to know, not only about my district, which is the southwest side of San Antonio. So for you all in your mind to think, all right, you're scratching your head, where's District 4? Well, if you're familiar with Port San Antonio and former Kelly Air Force Base, if you're familiar with Palo Alto College down on the south side, my alma mater was South San High School. That's the district I represent, along with Southwest High School, of which we have Dr. Verstedt, who's the superintendent, who is valiantly leading Southwest High School. So it is the southwest side of San Antonio, and it was where I was born and raised. It's where I spent all my life, and I've had the opportunity to be part of that community for as long as I've been alive. And the only time I was away was when I went away to Stanford for a few years. And I like to tell this story that the reason that I got involved in government, the reason that I was interested in serving the community was because I felt like I really had something to pay back. Like I've got this debt that is come due, and that I feel like if all is said and done and nothing is ever accomplished, that I've got this sense of that I'm playing with house money, if folks know that term. That I always feel like I'm in a place where I'm not supposed to be, and so I might as well just take advantage of it while I'm here before somebody boots me out, or somebody recognizes that maybe I'm not supposed to be here. It is the exact same feeling I felt when I had gotten accepted into Stanford, because I felt like very soon somebody's going to call me and say it was a mistake. That, you know, we made a mistake in the application. We thought you were Roy Saldana, you're Ray Saldana. But I got to tell you, growing up, it was an incredible experience to be on the south side of San Antonio. Learned a whole lot about who my community was by actually leaving. And the funny thing is the first thing I wanted to do after I left San Antonio, spent a few years away, was I wanted to come back to the city, and I wanted to serve. And what was interesting was that I remember in my head getting on a plane for the very first time. I was 18 years old, and thinking to myself that San Antonio is in my rear view mirror. Like, I have spent all my life here, and now that I've gotten an acceptance letter to go to college in California, I'm out. And this is my ticket. And growing up, I think you have this different sense of what success looks like. And I figured, all right, I've gotten into a good school. So what that means is that I'm going to get a great job, and I'm going to be rich, and that's my plan, my objective. So it was interesting for me to get to the point that I realized that all I wanted to do was come back to San Antonio. And then when somebody jokingly said to me, why don't you consider running for the city council, which was non-paid for the first 4 years of my service, that I jumped at the opportunity and said, that's exactly what I want to be doing. Because I want to be back in my community. And all my life, from 0 to 18, I spent it in San Antonio, so I never really saw the world around me. And if I was going away far off, and the furthest north I tell folks that I ever went was when my parents took me and the family to Fiesta, Texas. And even at that point, I was so far north that I had a nosebleed because I'd never been that far. So the idea for me was, when I got away to school, I had gotten this opportunity to get to visit other cities. So I played baseball at South San, I played baseball at Stanford, and I did more traveling, visiting schools like UCLA when we played UCLA, or USC, or Washington State, or Oregon, or Phoenix. And so I got to see these great cities and do this comparison between my old city, my city of San Antonio, and these other cities like San Francisco, like Los Angeles, like Phoenix, like Seattle, like Omaha, Nebraska, and ask myself all these questions about why is it that the city doesn't have the best transportation system? Why don't we have a transportation system like a San Francisco? Why don't we have the same job opportunities when I'm a senior that all of my friends want to go to LA or to Chicago or to New York? What is it about these big cities that seems to be a magnet for talent? And I knew that all I wanted to do was come back to San Antonio and get to serve. And so I'm going to just walk you through a little bit of my reflection of lessons learned, war stories, and the sense of what you get when you come into the job. And I can just take you through a very quick example of what it's like to just wake up one day and realize, okay, now you're the councilman, and you've got a sense of responsibility. But before you can become a councilman, you're still a candidate. And you're running around, and as a good candidate, what you're doing is you're actually looking for the one thing that all candidates are looking for, and it's not money for a campaign, although that's necessary. You're looking for votes. And so I remember the very first door that I knocked on was, I was walking through, and as a good candidate, you have a list of all of the voters. They're consistent voters. You know how old they are, you know their name, you know their address. And I remember going to Ms. Rodriguez's house and going up to her driveway, up to her door, knock, knock, knock. And if you're a good candidate, what you do is you try to spit out your pitch as quickly as you can, because it's Saturday and they will shut the door very fast in your face, and it happens often. So Ms. Rodriguez comes to the door and I say, Ms. Rodriguez, I want to come by and introduce myself. My name is Ray Saldana. I'm running for city council. I was born and raised on the south side, went to South End High School, then I went off to college, but now I'm right back and I want to serve you, and I'm running for city council to represent you. And she looked right back at me with a really, intriguing mind and scratching her head, and she said, are you running for the city council or are you running for the student council? Because you're certainly not old enough to be running for the city council. And I think to myself that was the first door of 3,000 more doors that I needed to knock on for this campaign. And so I want to take you to a very quick experience, which is that something happened. So if I can, I think this will work. Is it frozen or unfrozen? Perfect. Okay, well, I don't want to flip just yet. So here's the idea. Folks like the councilwoman knows, and the councilman who is here knows that you work so hard during a campaign. You're out there meeting with different advocacy groups, business groups, nonprofits, neighborhoods, neighborhood associations, and all of them are telling you what exactly they see for their community, what they need, what their aspirations are. And you're taking it all in. And then you realize that it's election day, and you're watching the poll results come in. And it's 7 p.m. And at 7 p.m. is a very important time for local elected officials who know that they run a campaign, because at 7 p.m. is when the early vote totals come in. And so you have a pretty good sense at 7:05 where you stand. And then by about 8:30, you have a pretty good sense of whether you won or you didn't, or whether you had a runoff or not. So May 14th, 2011, which is when I came in office, and I was at the ripe old age of 24, I realized something at 8:30 p.m. and everybody's celebrating or taking pictures, is that there is no switch. Nothing happens. You don't become all of a sudden this council member who knows all the answers, but people are asking you or calling you the councilman, and they expect you to have answers to everything. So here's my face of a stunned 24-year-old who doesn't know what the heck is happening next. That is not a real smile. Those are my friends around me who help me campaign throughout the day, and I have no idea what's coming at me for the next 7 years. The sense you get the election night is you're so excited. All you've been working for is to be a representative of your community, and you don't know all of the issues that are going to come your way. So it's almost like the end of this great movie that Robert Redford did in the 80s called The Candidate, that he's working so hard, not supposed to win. At the end of it, he wins, and the end of the movie is, now what do we do? So that's me thinking, now what do we do? That I've won this election. And so I want to tell you a very quick story, because the question of what you get to look back on over the last several years in office is you start to ask yourself, what did you prioritize? How do you measure whether you've been successful for your community, for your district, for all of the interests and things that become really important to you every single day? But you have to sift through a lot of things that come at you that are sometimes small or minor, but the most important thing is when you get a call from a constituent. And so a constituent will call you, and the great thing is that if you're good at your job, you're accessible, and they know your number, they know your cell phone, and they know your office. And so a lot of community members throughout the campaign had my cell phone. And one of them called me not very long after I got elected and said, Councilman, I need you to come out here to solve this problem that we've got in my home, in my neighborhood. And I said, sure, what do you got? I said, well, I've got this issue, and I don't need your staff out here. I need you, because I voted for you, and we need you to come out and fix it. I said, okay, what you got for me? Well, there's a bull in my backyard. And I said, wait, what? Hold on. Say that again. There's a bull in my backyard, and you need to come out and fix this because I don't know what to do. And so I said, all right, let me call Animal Care Services. Let's get out there. And so remember this, we get a lot of calls. And sometimes folks are lying to us, they're exaggerating about things. And so I get out there, And I say to myself, okay, what are we going to see? It's probably going to be some, a goat or a large dog, or maybe she thinks that she saw something that she didn't, because sometimes we get some calls from some constituents. But little to my knowledge, we show up and we get what looks like this. What's that? Oh. So when you're a council member, you start to collect all of these stories of cases of folks who call you and say, look, Councilman, like, you need to go out and fix this. So this is a constituent who called me because she lives out in the rural part of the city, near 1604, probably not far from Southwest. And the fence broke down in the neighborhood around her behind because they own a ranch. And so one of the fence broke, and this bull was literally walking through the neighborhood looking for the closest water source and ended up in her backyard at her pool. So the reason I tell you this is because you could spend all of your time on the council dealing with bulls. Or you can figure out, look, at some point, we need to start focusing on what our priorities are and what it is that will truly move the community forward. And so, in a sense, what we've been able to, over the last 7 years, is at least, I think, focus on a few big ticket items that are going to try to answer the question that a lot of folks in our community really care about. And so when you knock on doors and talk to 3,000 people, they give you a good sense of what it is that they want to see happen in their community in District 4. And so I use this slide because I wanted to tell a quick story. So part of my job today is to be as good of a storyteller as I can about some of the experiences I've had that have been really revealing to me about how things get done. And this is, for some folks who recognize this, an overshot of Port San Antonio. And as many of you know, it used to be Kelly Air Force Base. And so it's 2012, it's about a year after I'm elected. And what I will tell you all about the experience of being on the council is sometimes you deal with constituent cases, but then once you get to City Hall, you get into these big meetings and you start discussing what are these projects that are thinking or considering about moving to the city of San Antonio. So we call them big economic development projects. And so economic development projects are, in many cases, these big companies who are considering moving from another city to the city of San Antonio. That they've got jobs that they want to move to Texas or to San Antonio, so that they're prospecting and they're speculating and they're going around knocking on doors at Port San Antonio and a few others. But in 2012, we had a project, and they're always very secretive. They have a secret name, their code name, and I think one of these code names was Project Bullet. So Project Bullet, as we heard about it on the council, was a job opportunity, or jobs opportunities, close to 2,000 at the Port of San Antonio, aerospace jobs, engineers, 2,000 of them. That would have been a huge deal, the type of news that would rival the announcement of Toyota coming to San Antonio. So what we hear from the folks who are pitching to us in terms of the economic development team is they say, all right, council, city council, we've got 3 cities that we're considering. San Antonio is one of them, but we've got 2 other cities, and those 2 other cities are going to give us tax incentives, tax abatements, cash, free land. They're going to help us set up our building and construct what will be a pipeline of folks coming in to work for us. And it's a show us what you got type of competition. And in 2012, Project Bullet, you've never heard about this announcement because we didn't get the job. It's usually the case. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you learn something from each one of these experiences. So Project Bullet in 2012 was interesting to me because when we went back, we did a debrief, and you go back and talk to the company, you eventually find out where it is that they moved. They tell you why they didn't choose San Antonio. And back then what we learned was we were well in the game because we've got low cost of living here, we were offering them free land, we were offering them tax abatements. But what they said is, you know, Councilman, all things equal, the way you play this whole economic development game, bringing jobs to San Antonio, bringing jobs to your city, it's completely changed. It's not just offering us free tax abatements, it's not just offering us free land and giving the store away. We want to know that if we bring 2,000 engineers, whether we can actually fill those jobs. And we looked at your high school graduation rates, we looked at your graduation rates for college and attainment, and San Antonio is not where it needs to be. So you all need to fix some things if you ever want to compete at a higher level. And so a lot of us, folks who have been doing this, said, you know what, we can either take that lesson and do nothing with it, or try to start working what it is the roots of that problem, which is that we really have an issue when folks are looking to our city to invest. If they say we can't find the workforce, if we can't find the educated engineers, then we have to pay $5 million to bring them elsewhere and bring them into the city of San Antonio. That was my first experience with a big economic development project. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to start focusing on the things that matter, it's going to be the things that are not quick fix, easy button solutions. Which means that if we're going to compete, we can give away free land, but if we still have issues with graduation rates, if I still have issues with people who say to me, Councilman, I'd love to move back into District 4, I was born and raised there, but look, no one's building houses out there. And so I asked myself the question, who has the answer to why the folks are not building out in my district, in District 4? And so all of a sudden, what it came back to was not only the lesson I learned from the economic development project around folks not feeling like San Antonio is a well-educated workforce, but even on housing issues that I was struggling in District 4, nobody was building because they were afraid of the school districts in the area. They said, frankly, we can build out towards Westover Hills and Alamo Ranch and further out west because Northside's just got a better reputation than South San. And I know what that's like because I knew what it was like going to school there, and I know what it's like to have to deal with things like school board politics. And city council politics are bad, Councilwoman. Sometimes they get crazy, and I would consider that city council politics are like a boxing match. But school board politics are literally a drag-out cage match, blood sports. So I did something a little ill-advised, and I said, what I want to focus on, and it's going to take a long time, and we may not get the answer to it, but I'm going to do something ill-advised, and I'm going to get involved in the school districts. One, because I know that if we don't fix our lowest performing schools, that we're going to have problems attracting big jobs and creating the pipeline that we need for workforce because of the reputation. And two, because nobody's going to invest in the new homes or the new businesses that will ultimately attract people to come back to the district, because I'm thinking about the woman who I spoke with during the campaign who said the one thing you could do for us in our district is that you'll make it so that people feel proud of their community and they want to come back, that my grandkids don't feel like they need to move to another city or move even just to the north side to find success. And I know what that's like, because growing up, you think to yourself that if I'm successful, I'm moving out, I'm escaping this community. And part of it I knew was that the school district has a lot to do with it. And so I got involved with a little group. I started a little group called South San Kids First. And all we focused on was this 1-2-step process, which is step one, what if we were able to find a school board that actually got along? Because in my first 4 years on the city council, I introduced myself to 5 different superintendents at South San. And so you can't necessarily build an organization or a school district or a business if every year you're tossing the captain of the ship overboard. And we said that there needs to be something done about the stability of that board. And to this day, I'm still taking arrows out of my back because of the school board politics that I got into. But 2.5 years later, after we started the South San Kids First group, we've now got 4 great, solid school board members, of which we have one here, Edward Munguia, who understands that the second step of that process is that I recall that we were trying to find a superintendent. It was an open search for superintendents throughout the entire country to come to South San and be part of this pipeline, create a great school district on the south side for workforce, for graduation rates, for student outcomes. 9,000 students, many of them at risk, just like me growing up. A great opportunity for a superintendent, and nobody wanted to apply because nobody wanted to work with this school district. So we said, we want to focus on this in the years that we're in office. If it means that we don't continue to hold District 4 City Council, then so be it. But as long as we get to make some headway in this. So you've seen me focus on education because I think it has a huge implication on jobs that come to the city, on the development of my community and the way that people feel, and the perception that is sometimes hard to shake. Because we have certain perceptions about parts of our city, whether it's the west side, the east side, the north side, or the south side. And at the end of the day, what I wanted to try to do in District 4 is to leave it better than I found it. But I didn't want to do just the easy stuff, which is the things that you can see and you can touch, that you can point to when it comes to your next election. But some of the things that are more important to the long-term curve of the earth, that if things are truly going to change, it's because we're getting the small things right. And Southside Kids First is in its second year, and we've got a great community group who's come out, because think about this, in many cases, some of our youngest people and their parents who are in some of the in our struggling school districts, they've got a lot on their plate. Understanding school board politics is not their top priority. Understanding who their school board member is and what student outcomes look like and whether their kids are taking SATs and ACT prep is not at the top of their list, but that should be the role of the school district. And the reason I care about this so much is because I know the only reason I'm standing up here before you as a city councilman is because I got some support. But I am not the rule, I am the exception. And what we want to try to do is to create the accountability that sometimes doesn't exist in some of these schools by being the voice for parents who can't make late meetings, by being the voice for parents who can't speak up at school board meetings. And so that's an area that you've seen me focus and probably continue to see me focus as I finish out my last term. So when you ask for the state of the district, I thought to myself, I need to mention this, because typically the state of the districts talk about other things that I'd love to talk about, which are nice and they're great pictures, and I'll show you some of those. This is when I wanted to make sure that when you're thinking about whether elected officials are focusing on the right things, make sure that you consider whether we are dipping our toe at least into the most important thing that's happening in our community, which is our young people. Here's what I have loved to have done, what I love to do, which is I hate to be behind my desk, and I love to be out in the community as often as I can. And I want to tell you a quick story about riding along with our police officers and riding along with our EMTs. So one of these days I was out, it was about, it was 6 p.m., it wasn't a late one, so I was out with the EMT guys and we were going out and we were making calls. And so one morning we go into, or one afternoon we go into the Indian Creek community. I know Dr. Verstiff knows it well. And Indian Creek, for those who are not familiar with the southwest side of town or haven't been here long enough to remember that in the 90s, this was the part of our city where oftentimes if you turn on the 9 o'clock news and you hear about a drive-by or a body found, it would be in the Indian Creek area. So that's in my district, and it's in a zip code that I care a lot about. It's 78242. And I remember that our EMTs and I rolled upon a home where we saw that when we got into the home, there was a young man who was having a seizure. And our two EMT guys, being professionals, and I'm freaking out because this young kid is shaking on the ground, and his mother is also startled and upset by what's happening. They say to her, look, just settle down, he's gonna get out of it, he's having an epileptic seizure. And they said, have you taken him to the doctor? They said no. So at the end of the day, what we learned is that the primary care physician in some of our communities was 911. The primary care physician was the EMT guys going out there. And so we said, we have a problem that we need to solve here. And we could wait on the federal government coming in and building us a clinic, but what we should probably do is just figure out how we solve these problems locally. And the reason I'm excited about being a city councilman is because the reason you should be optimistic about the future of our country is not by looking at Washington or even Austin. There's this great line from an author named Bruce Katz who wrote about the metropolitan revolution of cities. That if you want to be optimistic about the future of our cities, you'll stand on your head and look at it from the bottom up. Because what's happening is in cities where your trash gets picked up, where your potholes have to be filled, where your park lights have to be on, is that we can't escape problems. And if we see them, we have to do something about it. So in that case, what we decided to do was that this wasn't just a city problem that needed to be solved, and we figured out we need to actually engage partners. So as we speak, we're building out a clinic right outside of Indian Creek community on Old Pearsall Road with the help of Central Med. It's a $12 million clinic that serves not only the underserved population, but it's the underinsured population. And the crazy thing about it is this community is right outside the gates of Lackland Air Force Base, which has some of the best medical medicine, but they can just watch it from afar, but they can't access it. And so we're building a brand new clinic, raising private dollars to do it. And so we've raised about $11 of $12 million for this clinic that we're excited to cut the ribbon on in August. And it came from that particular young man who taught me that this was something that we needed to work on. And it's really, it's fun for me because, you know, I tell people that this job is almost like this game that I used to play on the computer back in the day when I was growing up. It was called Sim City, if anybody remembers this. It's where you could build your own city, you could build your parks, your streets, your schools, except that they would happen at a click of a mouse. And what I've learned here is that these happen at the click of about 4 years. And what you need to have in terms of the job and your ability to sort of see things and try to solve the root problems is to try to have a little bit of patience. And I've had 7 years to try to work on some of these big important things, and the reason I was mentioning things like education is because it took a long time for us to get some progress there. For this clinic, it took us 4 years to get there, but it sends a message to that community that this is a community that's not going to be overlooked, especially when it comes to medical needs. What I learned on the bus. Here's another issue, and I think Jeff has already given away the story here on how we've been able to find success here, and ultimately what I want to tell you is what is going to be the big play for the future. I've talked a lot about the past, but the story here was really interesting for me. The reason this came about, the reason I rode a bus for a month and said, just imagine yourself actually today, if you just didn't have access to your vehicle, and you didn't have access to your vehicle for 30 days. And so the reason this got on my radar is because I actually decided that I was going to go on this adventure with my wife. I said, hey, let's go on a date downtown and let's take the bus instead of driving. And so we took a picture of ourselves and took a selfie. And what would happen was people were commenting. I posted it on Facebook, and they said, well, Councilman, that's really cute that you're taking it one night on a bus. You're taking the bus one night to go on a date with your wife, but that's my entire life. That's how I get to work. That's how I get to school. That's how I pick up groceries. And so they challenged me. They said, if you truly want to know what it's like to ride the bus, you'll do it for an entire month. So that's what I did. I hung my keys up, and I wanted to learn what it was like to not have a vehicle in San Antonio, and realized that this was something that opened my eyes and the rest of the council to a big problem that existed over at VIA, which is that consider this number, 550 million compared to 200 million. 550 million is the amount of money that Austin, which is a smaller city, has to run its public transportation system. 200 million is what VIA has for a city that is larger than Austin. And we have been dealing with this problem as far back as 1977. So when folks who are waking up in my district at 4 a.m. to try to get to the medical center at 7 a.m. Are struggling in these 2-hour-long commutes, it's not on accident, it's on purpose. It's because we've been continually ignoring VIA for a long time. And I bring up VIA and transportation because if you want to put a bet on what the next big issue for the city of San Antonio will be, it will be in transportation. Remember that 6 months ago, Amazon was knocking on cities' doors asking about whether they wanted to bring over, what, 10,000, 50,000 jobs? We want to play in that game. We want 50,000 jobs. But what ultimately came down to is that we weren't prepared to meet one of their criteria. It says if you want these big-time jobs, then you need to have a well-organized 21st century comprehensive transportation system that includes a public transportation system for our employees that is integrated with the community, that is quick, that is frequent. And so with our $10 million that the city is contributing to VIA to improve life for the blue-collar, hardworking folks who in some cases may be serving meals this morning or cleaning beds at the hotel, we're working on that with the $10 million, but in the future, the city, the council, and the mayor are going to have to consider what we do to fix this problem. So maybe this is a sneak peek, but in the next few months, you're going to hear a lot more about VIA and about what we as a city, perhaps even as voters, are going to try to decide to do a comprehensive approach to public transportation. And that was my learning on the bus. So when folks criticize me for trying to get more money for VIA, they would say something like this. They would say, well, why do you want to get more money for VIA? Every time I see them, the buses, they're empty. And you probably have a point, except that you're not seeing them at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. And if you were looking at them at 4 or 5 a.m., you would see a different bus. And that's what we had to get council members to understand. Councilman Cryer, I tried to push and push for him to ride the bus with me. He never did it, but at the end of the day, he understood the message because he knew that this was folks who were even trying to get to his district and do work because that's where the jobs were. So transportation is one of these big transformational priority issues of mine that I think is going to be important for us in the future of San Antonio, not just in District 4, but throughout San Antonio. Here's the last story I'll tell you if I've got just a little bit of time here. Consider the game Sim City again. Build your city from scratch. Build your city from scratch and decide where you want to put the hospital, where you want to put the college, where you want to put the brand new malls, the brand new schools, the brand new streets, the brand new parks. But remember, you're building a city like Sky Harbor, like Hillside Acres, like Five Palms, like the South San community, and you just have to sort of deal with it. And when you sort of deal with it, that means that you as a community member start to think to yourself, like, this is kind of what we expect and what we deserve. We don't know anything different. And I remember having these conversations with these community members who would say to themselves, that, look, you know, you can come and knock on my door and work on, you know, we'll vote for you, but nothing ever changes around here. And they had a really strong point there. Nothing had ever changed back there. They remember when what you're looking at here was the city's landfill. And you would see the vultures and the fly over, and they'd fly over their home on their way to the landfill. So from 1960 to 1980, this was a landfill, and then in 1980 it was capped. And after 20 years, the EPA then gives it back to the city and says, you know, we've measured the methane escapes, it's now safe for you all to use it for whatever it is that you want to use it for. That was 2000. So in 2000, this becomes a city park. And we say to ourselves, right, for 10 years it really sat, nobody had invested in it. But when we came in office in 2011, we said, you know what we want to do? We want to take this and transform it into the city's largest and best park. What is it going to take? So it is literally 500 acres. And there's no other place in the city where you would find hills. We're not in the hill country, but you've got hills over at Pearsall Park because those are mounds of trash that have grown over. And so we said to ourselves, this is a tough thing to do for an elected official, as I kind of wrap up this last story, but when you're elected, sometimes we make this mistake of, okay, I gotta get reelected. I gotta get reelected in 2 years. So what do I need to do? I need to do something that I can point to. It has to be done within a year, because if not, I'm gonna have nothing to point to, and folks are going to vote me out of office. What we decided to do in this case was something ill-advised. I have a tendency of doing things that are ill-advised, like riding the bus or getting involved in school board politics. But what we decided to do was take all of the money that we had for our district for parks, which is about $8 million, and we have 30 parks in our district. So the easy thing to do is sprinkle a little park bench here, a little basketball court here, a little cover there, a little playground here, and then go back to all those communities and say, look what we built you, look how great we're doing. So we decided we're going to do something different. We're just going to put all our money into this park. And we're going to put all of this money in this area that, I'll tell you very clearly, did not have a single voter to come out of it. It's not my highest voting precinct. In fact, it's the opposite of what you should do if you're trying to get reelected, is put money in this area, which light bulbs should be going off. That's why this area hasn't gotten a lot of attention in the past. That's why parts of our city haven't gotten a lot of attention in the past. But we said we're going to dump $7.5 million, and the most fun I've ever had in this job was when I got to go around to middle schools and elementary schools and say to them, look, I've got a check for $7.5 million, and I need you to help me build the city's best park. And so these students from Shepherd or from McAuliffe, they would get these crazy ideas and say, I want the city's, how about we do playground? Check, let's do it. Skate park? Check. Let's do splash pads? Check. We still got $4 million left. Keep the ideas coming. They want to do a zip line from one hill to the other. I said, that's too dangerous, we're not going to do it, unchecked. But we can do a smaller zip line and we'll figure that out. And so they come up with these ideas, the climbing nets and the 5K and 10K trails. And so this is this is literally the most favorite, this is my favorite part of the job, is getting to have built something that I can see and touch, but it took a whole lot of time. And it's called Pearsall Park. So what once was the dump from 1960s, 1980s, what once was the eyesore the community members just had to drive through and say, yeah, that's our community, is now the city's largest and, in my opinion, the best park in the community. So we went from a dump to a destination. During spring break, you can go out there and see tons of family members. That's not a rendering, that's a real aerial picture of community members, and it's like that almost every single day. And the day that we cut the ribbon, I remember one of the community members from that neighborhood saying, how much does it cost to get in here? And I said, you've already paid. This is your taxpayer dollars at work. And then some of them would say, are you sure, as it was being built, are you sure you want to build this out here? Don't you want to build this in a nicer area of town? I said, no, your area, your district, your community deserves the same thing that any other community deserves. So when I was thinking about what should I talk about when we think about the state of District 4, it's that I want folks at the end of the day, not just to be able to see things that they can enjoy, things like Pearsall Park, but I want them to feel something about their district. I want them to feel something about the community changing, whether it's their schools or their transportation commute or their clinic. I want them to change the way that they see things in their community. And I wanted to have a little fun while doing it. And this is me getting used one of the swinging rings at Pearsall Park. Not the zip lines. Another ill-advised idea, right? Me on swinging rings. Here's where I'll sort of stop and end. But there's this concept here that I really like. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they'll never sit in. Now I would change that. It's the Greek proverb as written, but I would change that to include women, of course. But when you consider what it's like to plant trees or plant seeds that take a long time to cultivate, that take a long time to see the roots come up above the surface, you have to have a lot of patience. And in this job, you should be challenging a lot of folks who are taking on some of those short, easy wins, because the things that really matter, transportation, transformations to our education system, transformations to the way that we get jobs, it's not just us giving money away, takes a longer amount of time. And I've got 1.5 years left. And so we're going to continue to work at some of these important things. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit under some of the trees that we plant seeds for, but at the very least know that I want to be able to sleep on the most comfortable pillow you can ever sleep at night, which is a clean conscience about what you're trying to get done. And for me, it was very simple, is I wanted to leave District 4 better than I found it. And that's all I've been working on for the last 7 years. So whether it's a bull in your backyard, or a school board that needs support, or a clinic, or a transportation system that needs shaping and moving, that's where you'll find me. And no doubt this has been an incredible journey for me, and I think I've gone from 24 to 31 and gotten to see all kinds of different transformations. At the West Chamber has been an important player for us, because I know that convening like this doesn't just happen, but it orients us on what we should be considering is the measure of success. And my measure of success growing up was much different than it is today. And I think it considers things that are long-term, things that are important about touching people's lives and impacting them in a certain way. And my state of the district is sort of a less of, here's all of the bullet items that we've come through, but it's just a quick message about how we plant seeds and how we have to have patience to watch them grow. So with that, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You know, I was sitting there and I'm thinking, what do you say after that? Councilman, thank you very, very much. I think for all of you, I would hope that you feel the same as I. We have a leader here in San Antonio who is not only humble, honest, but he's also visionary and bold. So I'd ask you to, one more round of applause. And he's absolutely right. I mean, you could have gone down the list of drainage projects and we fixed this street. It's those things that go unnoticed that I think are so important in that long-term visionary play. Councilman Saldana is the newest member of our core group of council members. As you know, Councilwoman Gonzalez in District 5, Councilman Brockhouse and Councilwoman Sandoval had been the core group of the West San Antonio Chamber. We've expanded that now to District 4, and we certainly thank the councilman for allowing us to do that, because you've been a great addition to our agenda and to our overall focus. So, Christy, any last housekeeping issues for today?
Parking.
Parking. Christy will be watching you as you go out the door to make sure you get your parking ticket done.
Yes, and April 17th, Councilman Brockhouse.
Councilman Brockhouse, we're going out to Viola's Viola's Ventana, out on 151 for the next one. So we look forward to seeing you out there, and then we will be certainly looking forward to Councilwoman Sandoval's address the month after. So again, thank you very, very much. Thank you for braving the weather, and I assure you it was certainly well worth it, Councilman. Thank you very much, everyone.